y'all, and welcome. You're listening to the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm your host, Dakota Dawn Johnson, small-town cowgirl with Southern roots, blazing a trail as a Midwest ranch wife, mama, and businesswoman. The mission of Cowgirl Confessions is to share the wonderfully wild and Western life stories of cowgirls from all walks of life. We'll talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to navigating careers, cowboys, kids, and cattle. Legendary cowgirl Dale Evans said it best. Cowgirl is a pioneer spirit, a special brand of American courage. The cowgirl faces life head-on, lives by her own lights, and makes no excuses. Cowgirls take stands. They speak up. They defend the things they hold dear. A cowgirl might be a rancher, a barrel racer, a bull rider, or an actress, but she's just as likely to be a checker at the local Winn-Dixie, a full-time mother, a banker, an attorney, or an astronaut. If you're into wet saddle blankets, talks with God, buckets full of laughter, and the life lessons learned in the process, kick off your boots and settle in. I pray these stories encourage, empower, and give you just the leg up you need. Here's to embracing the Cowgirl State of Mind, no matter how wild and Western life may get along the way. Hello and welcome to the Wonderfully Wild and Western 2022 recap. This is something that I plan on doing each year going forward as I end a season, begin a new one on the podcast. And y'all, I'm just going to lay it out on here and probably share more than I typically would, just so that this is a place that I can come back and look at the progress that was made and the hardships that I persevered through, not only as a podcast host, but just in all the areas of my life, whether it be personal, professional, building my own business. It's been a lot in 2022, and I have no doubt that some of you that are listening, you understand. 2022 presented some really unique challenges, but also helped put me on a path that I've been praying for years. And while it was extremely challenging, I mean, one of the heaviest things that I did in 2022 is I wrote obituaries for a sibling and my childhood best friend. I mean, you want to talk about hit you in the heart, take your breath away. Like, that was a moment that really, I've reflected on and have been grieving that. And still, am on my grief journey with that. But at the same time, 2022 also brought forth miracles. I had a friend of mine that recently was on an episode that, she battled a fight with cancer, and she was victorious, and she's living to tell about it. And her story is on episode 52. Lacey Kelly, you'll have to tune in and listen to that. But I've seen God at work, and that's how I haven't lost hope, haven't lost faith that He's doing a work in me. He's doing a work in the people around me. He's doing a work through this podcast. And while I was not able to produce as many episodes as I wanted to, I still made progress. And as my friend Thea Larson, she's the creator of the Cowgirls Over Coffee membership, she reminds me and the women in our group all the time that progress, like even it is the smallest little step, like if you add those small steps together, it's progress, and you will be able to see the change that you are making over time. As I already mentioned, there were different types of challenges that I encountered in 2022 that made me feel like I was not making progress some days. However, there were some incredible opportunities that unfolded and presented themselves to me throughout this past year. And it all came from the podcast. And so I want to share a couple of those with you just to kind of put it in context. The first thing that happened was in around March of last year, a friend of mine reached out to me and said, "Hey, I have a client that needs a voiceover done for their product. And I thought of you. I sent them your podcast and they like your voice. Like, would you be up for this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, sure. What does it entail?" I'm like, "Yes, I'll do it." And then I'm like, "Okay, what does that really entail?" And it was so in alignment because I already had all of the tools to do the recording. It was product that I believed in. I believed in their mission. And so I had this opportunity to be compensated for a skill that I already had. I was leaning into using it in a different way that I really had not thought about being a another stream of revenue for me and my small business. And so from that, I actually was able to use those funds to sponsor a couple of different things that I'm really passionate about. So, really passionate about being able to give back to the Cowgirls Breakaway Roping, as well as the Miss Rodeo USA Association, because both of those have made big impacts in my life story. And so, from that voiceover opportunity, it gave me multiple opportunities to give in a way that I wouldn't have necessarily had the capacity to give in that amount before. And, that also put me in allowed me to be advertised, the podcast to be advertised and get out in front of more people to spread the idea of the Cowgirl State of Mind. Another really great opportunity that came about in 2022 from the podcast was I was asked to come and share about the podcast, public speak at 3 different events. And one of these events that I just was a little bit blown away that they asked me to come to was an FFA event, and it was on communication. And a lot of times I'll get asked to go and share things from the realm of my job as a sales rep, which I love sharing that side of what I do as well. Really enjoy it. But this was the first time that I had been asked specifically to come and speak from the position of being a podcast host and producer and share what the Cowgirl Confessions podcast is all about. And I was able to do that with, a younger generation that really is important, for this whole, I wish more people, especially our younger generation, had that Cowgirl State of Mind ingrained in them. And so just knowing that I've wanted to be able to step out and be a public speaker, go to more events and do that. And I was presented with 3 opportunities to go do that thanks to this podcast this past year. So I just, I can feel God expanding my territory, even though when along the way, it felt like the progress was slow. And sometimes it felt like it was honestly pretty stagnant, but it was still progress. And I'm just really grateful for those wins throughout this past year that have given me the encouragement and the momentum really to just keep going. Spent January reflecting instead of trying to jump in with a plan and having it all figured out. That's something I did different this year is I just gave myself the space to be present the month of December, finish out the year strong in the different areas of my life, whatever that looked like and meant, and enter January in a space of reflection. And I'm continuing to do that. And some of the really neat things that I have, as I've been reflecting and going back just month by month and journaling about what happened that month, what were some triggers for me, what were some things that were outstanding, what were the hard things, what were the financially stretching things, what happened, month by month. Once I let myself get in a place to where I actually kind of start to unwind and really reflect, like really just kind of write it all down. It's been really incredible to look at the progress that was made, even when I didn't feel like I was making that much progress, because it was, it wasn't like I got to be super consistent every single week doing what I had planned to do, because like it was a bumpy ride. 2022 was just a bumpy ride. And as I already mentioned, I had some things, that were personally challenging that I was dealing with. And then I had a new opportunity arise at Area International. I never saw this coming. I had just really started feeling like I was confident in the position I had taken a year prior, moving to the footwear side. And then a new opportunity came about for me to move back to the apparel team, but move into a position on the farm side of the business. And I applied for that. And before I applied for that, I might add, I applied for two other positions that my manager, encouraged me to apply for, and I wasn't a good fit for. So, I didn't get those jobs. And then ultimately it led to me making a job change in June of 2022 to the farm team. And really, for the past 6 months, I felt like I was drinking from a fire hose. I don't know if you've ever felt like that, but sister, let me tell you, I mean, you know there's a learning curve, but then you get in it and you're like, I had no idea how much I didn't know until you start doing it. It's very humbling. It's very humbling. And lifelong learning. I'm committed to it. And I've had to remind myself of that quite frequently over the past 6 months. As I'm doing a new thing. God's doing a new thing in me. He's put me in contact with new people and let me learn a new skill set and really honing in on things. I try to pride myself on being a great, an excellent communicator. And there have been days that I'm like, I don't know that I'm really that great of a communicator, because the person on the other end of this line is not really picking up what I'm putting down. I mean, have you ever had that feeling? And so in those moments, instead of just feeling defeated, I've had a great team around me, and just good friends that I've been able to share this stuff with, more in detail. And they've just been like, Dakota, like, knock it off, start again. Go about it at a different angle. You're still a great communicator, but lean into this and let it challenge you to be an even better communicator. And so anyway, those are just some things that I have went through in 2022, that in this time of reflection, this month of reflection for me in January, have really come to the top of my mind. And I just want to encourage you as well, that if you're not already taking time to sit and be with yourself, or taking time to journal, I highly, highly recommend it. And I actually started a new journaling practice the end of December, because a dear friend of mine, she also happens to be my godmother, she gifted me a 5-year journal. And it's so cool the way it's set up. It's made me want to journal, because I think about how I'll utilize this one journal and how cool it'll be for not only me, but for our kids one day to look back at it and see. So it basically has one day on a page and 5 different short little entries, to where year over year you come back to that same page and you write just a very short, like 2 to 3 sentences or less, a little journal entry about what's going on in your world, or what you're thinking about. And that has been such a pivotal tool, for me, a new practice, if you will. Because I've always liked to journal, but sometimes I'm not great about staying on track. I'll miss a few days here or there because, hey, life happens, right? So that is one thing that I have committed to in 2023. The end of 2022, I started it. The moment I got it from her, I was like, I have to start this now. I can't wait until January 1. And through 2023, and really, the next 5 years, I'm committed to writing in that journal every single day, because it's just going to be such a great, like, timestamp on what's going on in my life. A great way to look back and reflect very quickly on what my life looked like in that moment, what I was dealing with, what our family was going through, what I was able to do professionally, and with my small business. And so if you're not already journaling or taking time to sit and be with yourself, heck, if you don't like to write, record yourself, cut on the voice memo, push record on the voice memo on your phone, and just record your thoughts as you sit there with yourself, because it can be so powerful, especially I feel like if you can start your day out that way, just takes a few minutes. So that I want to just encourage you to think about that, try to make time for that as we head into 2023. And I am truly, truly excited about what is potentially going to come of this podcast in 2023. So I have had big goals, big dreams, and I still have them for this podcast. Its mission has not changed. I am dedicated to sharing the Cowgirl State of Mind and the stories of women from all walks of life that embody that Cowgirl State of Mind with women across the globe. And there's been so much support over the past couple of years, and it's crazy to even say that now, but I mean, this podcast started as an idea in July of 2020. We aired our first episode in September of 2020, and here we are, January of 2023. So, come a long way, it feels like, in really a short amount of time. And so, there are some new things on the horizon for this podcast in 2023, but the mission stays the same. And without each of you that are listening, spreading this mission, spreading the idea, spreading the podcast concept, it wouldn't have taken off like it has. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for each one of you that share an episode, leave a review, tag us in the stories, like you're listening while you're driving the tractor, or you're going down the road, or you're washing dishes, or loping circles on your horse, and you tag us in your stories. I love seeing that, because that's the goal. It's like, just bring us along for the ride. Everybody is living their own version of wonderfully wild and Western lifestyles. And we, the podcast, and the one lady I have behind the scenes right now helping me, and myself, we want to be along for the ride. We want this to be easy. Again, come as you are. And just thank you. Thank you for including us. I pray that this podcast continues to be a blessing to those that listen to it. Really, really excited for the guests that we have in store. And also, one of the things in 2023 is I will be doing more solo podcasts, sharing different parts of my story, experiences I've had, because I'm just not in a position to where when certain people reach out and they want information or want to know how I did this or did that, whether it's in my corporate position or, personally, how I handle situations, and how did I get to where I'm at today? And, how do you navigate cowboys, careers, kids, cattle? I don't always have the bandwidth to respond back in an Instagram or Facebook message in a way that I feel like really tells that whole story. And so one of the challenges I've given myself is to show up on here and share my story more, and saying, reminding myself that people like to hear from me, that I make a difference when I share my story. And so for any of you out there that struggle with talking about yourself and not just telling stories of other people, that's another thing for you, encouragement for you. It's something I'm working on. It's very uncomfortable. It's much easier for me to share stories of other people. But I know it's part of the growth process for me. It's part of the growth for this podcast. And there are some exciting things to come in 2023 that I really feel like are in alignment with the mission of this podcast, the vision I have for myself, who I want to be, who I want to show up as, for my family, for my colleagues, for the other small business owners out there, and the people that are just thinking, I've got something to offer, but I'm not really sure how to go about doing it. I'm very prayerful that what I can produce this year and share on this podcast is going to make a difference in the lives of all of those people. So, thank you for tuning in to the Wonderfully Wild and Western recap of 2022. This ends season 3 of the Cowgirl Confessions podcast, and we will be coming back with a brand new episode to kick off season 4 very, very soon. Take care, friend. Thank you for spending your time with me on the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm so glad y'all stopped by. If you could take a moment to share this episode and tag us on social media, I'd be happier than a cowgirl in a sea of buy one, get one vintage turquoise. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode. New episodes will be released bi-monthly. Please leave us a review if you feel so led by going to iTunes. Your feedback will really help us breed the idea of grabbing life by the horns with the Cowgirl State of Mind into women across the globe. Some that may have never even had the privilege to throw their leg over a horse, but could most certainly use the Cowgirl State of Mind while navigating life. Thanks again, y'all. Until next time, keep pursuing your dreams with that all-go and no-woe mentality. Remember, you're writing a story that's worth saddling up for, sister.